Saludi a rangive la proviad special a gazotet amant a zisplega de zuntu labour kembreis evidoiez a da eskem var an doareu da la roudea a rouedat e evit kasvaro l'ISMS ar Iezu en Europa.
Families and communities, we recognise, and youth are the most important areas. Education, policy are important, but at the end of the day, if people don't choose to use the language, then it won't increase in terms of usage. And families, within communities, amongst young people, unless we actually make sure that we make it attractive, then it just won't happen.
But certainly in terms of people moving in, again, we've been working on a number of projects looking at this. We think probably that our tactic is that we want their children to learn Welsh and we want them to support the language. But basically we don't expect them in general to learn the language itself. So as people move into Welsh speaking areas, their children, if they're under the age of 11, can go to centres where they have an intensive Welsh course. So, for example, in the northwest of Wales.
For example, in the city of Cardiff, which has a population of 300,000, they have gone from one school in 1980 to 14 schools in 2009. So there is a growth in terms of the interest in the language and also in the number of parents sending their children to a Welsh education. I think it's the desire of the community itself they want to see the Welsh language live and survive. That comes through quite strongly from the people of Wales, and that over a period of time, of course, that the politicians have realised that as well and put many things in place to help to promote the language. It's this link, I think, between the communities wanting to support the language, the people wanting to support the language, and also political policies to support the language.
What were the most successful policies?
Well, I think in terms of the most successful policies would be the ones in education, where we've seen a very big growth in the number of children having an education in Welsh. And we've seen it grown from one school at the beginning of the middle of the 40s to a situation now where we have 450 schools for children between the age of 4 and 11 teaching through the medium Welsh. That's a huge increase.
Of course, the community has its own role in following up this. Well, we wanted to have the Welsh language develop, but the politicians had their saying as well.
Yes, it's certainly the communities have expressed their demand for an increase in the use of Welsh, but politicians have seen that, and of course as Welsh has grown, as Wales has grown as a unit, and we've had a parliament in Wales since 1999, they also see the Welsh language as part of their heritage and want to strengthen it, and we can see that we have basically all party support for the language, and they want to do more, and their intention over the next 18 months is to pass a new Welsh Language Act to support even more the Welsh language.
So how did you manage to arrive to this situation?
It's very difficult to answer that question. I think it's a situation which has developed over the last 50 years, that as people in Wales have seen that they want to make Wales a country which is more unified, that part of that identity is to deal with the language itself. That even if you're not Welsh speaking, you want to support the language. And that's made a huge difference to how much support we have.
How much money do you spend on promoting the language?
Generally every year we spend around 16.5 million directly on the language itself. Obviously much more than that is spent on Welsh medium education, because that goes through the education budget. It's around 16.5 million.
You talked as well about trying to help secure the language amongst young people. What's your policy to bring up, to have this teenagers speaking Welsh outside of the school?
Well, we know unless young people speak the language and choose to speak the language on a daily basis, the language won't survive. So we've put a great deal of emphasis on making sure that the language is attractive. We work with schools to help them to support the use of the language within the schools, but also outside schools. We've concentrated mainly on two areas. One which is sport, so you can do sport in the medium Welsh, and the other element is pop music. Welsh pop music, which is quite strong anyway, but we help children develop skills in terms of playing instruments and singing, and also arranging gigs.
You talked as well about having teenagers helping younger children to speak the language, or to organize some sort of whatever they wanted.
Yes, that's a project we've been running over the last 3 years, where we give a small amount of money to young people aged 16, 17, to work with children at the age of 11, so that the older children have an influence on the younger people. So the young children look up at children who are older themselves and want to do the same as they do. So this project of organising these events, social events and interesting things to do, certainly has had an effect.
It works.
It works.
Thank you very much. Can you present yourself in Welsh?
Meirion Prys Jones, Prif Weithredwr Bwrdd yr Iaith Gymraeg.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr.
On a scale from 0 to 10, yeah, how would you rate your work? Was it in terms of success? Your own work, not this of the board. Yeah, we'll come to that later.
I would rate it around 6.
And your degree of personal satisfaction having been carry on this job, like
on a scale of 1 to 10.
The same
scale.
Same scale.
I think I'd 7. I'm quite pleased.
How important was it to you to be a member, to be part of this action, of this growth?
It's always been quite important. I've always liked a challenge, and obviously to do work in this area you need to like a challenge. But I think most probably in my linguistic background, the fact that my mother didn't speak Welsh, only my father, and that we lived half our childhood in a Welsh-speaking area and half in an English-speaking area, made the linguistic mix an interesting one for me.
Sure, yeah. You told us previously about context and how things you do in Wales may not apply to what we do here. If you could just give us a couple hints, things that might work here in Brittany, according to your own experience and what you know of Brittany already.
I think it's a very important thing to stress, that you can't do exactly the same as somebody else. But I think the important things are preschool, that you have a preschool provision for so many reasons, that young children from the age of 6 months onwards can have the opportunity to learn language. And the other element then is to do with people between the ages of 18 and 30. That if you concentrate on them, because they are the young people who have income, who want an interesting life, but also they are the parents. And if we look at what their needs are and what makes language attractive to them, then I think that you're on safer ground.
Just one last question. In 10 years, one wish for the Welsh language?
Oh, that's an interesting one. That we continue with the growth that we have. That progression, I think, is a good pace to go at.
Diolch fawr.
Yeah.